Should you buy a cheap motorcycle helmet, a mid-range one, or one that's even more expensive? This helmet is more than twice the price of this one, but is it twice as good? We'll find out. So here in the UK, a helmet is the only piece of gear that you have to wear legally on a motorbike. You won't get away with not wearing one. And for really good reason. A helmet is literally going to save your life. If you come off even at cycling speeds and you hit your head, it's going to be very bad news for you and you can very easily be killed, unfortunately. So it's natural then that when you're helmet shopping, safety is probably going to be your biggest priority. So it seems like common sense that this helmet being twice as expensive is going to be twice as safe. Well, it's not necessarily true. Let's dig into it a little bit more. All helmets have to be certified to ECE standards here in the UK and in Europe, and these are both certified to ECE 22.05, which I believe was the latest at the time when I bought both of these. They also both have this gold sticker on the back, which means they're ACU approved. That's a British motorsports body, and if you want to do a track day in the UK, you're going to need a helmet that's got that sticker on there. So both of these helmets have passed the exact same safety certification, but one other source I like to check is the Sharp helmet rating. That's another program here in the UK where different helmets get tested, and they get a rating out of 5 stars. This one has a 5-star Sharp rating, and this one has a 4-star Sharp rating. So actually, according to that particular test, this is a slightly safer helmet, even though it's half the price. So often, when you're looking at how much you should spend on a motorcycle helmet, someone will say something smug like, oh, it depends how much your life is worth, or it depends how much you value your brain. And it's just not true, because if both these helmets have been certified to the same standard, and they both perform really well on the Sharp test, you can trust either one with your life, and I do every time I decide to wear one. As I was editing this video, there's one thing that I think it's important for me to add/clarify. When I say cheap helmets, I'm still talking about reputable brands, reputable companies, buying from an actual motorbike shop. I've actually made a video all about motorcycle helmets that I'll link somewhere. But I'm not talking about going and buying a £20 helmet off of eBay. I just mean that when brands bring out helmets, they'll bring out 5 or 6 different models. Some will be cheaper and some will be more expensive, and it's about the differences between those. It's still about buying something safe, and it's still about buying something from a proper brand and a proper shop. So if a more expensive helmet isn't necessarily safer, let's look at some of the things that you do get when you decide to upgrade to something a bit more mid-range. Generally, cheaper helmets might be a little bit noisier, and more expensive helmets do a little bit better at dampening that wind noise. Personally, between these two, I don't find much of a difference, but they're two different materials. One's carbon fibre, which is noisy anyway. It also has speaker cutouts, so this isn't actually that much quieter than this one. It might even be a tiny bit louder, but I'd rate them about the same. But generally, if you get a cheap helmet, it's going to be a fair bit noisier than if you go for a really high-end premium helmet. So even though I said this is not necessarily safer, that's referring to crash testing and different certifications, but you do get some additional safety features when you decide to upgrade to a more mid-range helmet. For example, the visor on this one is much wider, and my field of view is just massive with this helmet. With the HJC, it's a little bit restricted, and it kind of feels like I've got blinkers on. It also comes with this emergency pull release system, so if you have an accident and someone's trying to get your helmet off, they can pull these tabs, it removes the cheek pads, and it just gives them a little bit more space to work. The fit of the helmet is going to be key to both your safety and your comfort when you're riding. You probably won't be able to tell, but the cheek pads on this helmet are much nicer, they're much more plush, they're much softer, and they're a little bit chunkier too. It just feels much more comfortable wearing this helmet than going back to the HJC. That one kind of feels like cardboard after you've worn something like this. This particular helmet is called the Air Carbon, and it's because it has this air system, so it has these pockets behind the cheek pads, and you can kind of pump it up and just dial in that perfect fit. Personally, I think it's a little bit of a gimmick. It hasn't really helped me, but it can help just to tighten up the cheek pads a little bit if they've started to loosen off. The main reason I actually upgraded from my HJC to this helmet is because I have a Senna system, and my HJC didn't have speaker cutouts, so every time I put the helmet on and off, the speakers would fall out, and it was just really annoying. So that's some of the features that you can get on a cheaper helmet, but if that's something that's important to you, make sure you look for it when you're buying a new helmet. Both of these helmets come with a drop-down sun visor, and I actually prefer the one on the HJC. It comes down a little bit further, and it just blocks that last little bit of light. But I will say that the mechanism to toggle the sun visor is a little bit easier to get to on the Scorpion. It's just this switch on the side, whereas on the HJC it's kind of a lever at the top of your head. It's just a little bit awkward to get to until you're used to it. This helmet is much lighter, and it makes it so much more comfortable to wear. Because it's carbon fibre, it weighs 1200 grams, this one weighs about 1500 grams. And for me, weight is quite important because I wear a GoPro and I've got my Senna intercom, so that adds a couple of 100 grams. If you've already got a heavy helmet to begin with, once you've added those accessories, it's just really painful to wear after a while. So a light helmet is really important to me, and this one is definitely better than this one in that regard. Even though this Scorpion helmet is twice as expensive as the HJC, it still works out really good value, and part of that is down to the accessories that you get with it in the box. So you get a spare dark visor, and you also get a pin lock insert. Those both cost about £30 each if you're going to buy them separately, so you get about £60 worth of accessories when you buy this helmet, which is really good value. So overall, I'd say if you're buying a helmet or you're using a cheap helmet at the minute, it's well worth the upgrade to something in the more mid-range. Not because one's going to save your life and one isn't, but this one is much more comfortable, it's much lighter, it's got a much wider visor, and it's just a nicer helmet to wear overall. But if you're on a tight budget, don't be afraid of buying a cheap helmet. As long as it's certified, it's safe, you can check the sharp ratings to get another opinion, and if it passes all those tests, then there's nothing wrong with wearing a cheaper helmet. It's definitely not a case of if you've got a £100 head, wear a £100 helmet, and if you've got a £500 head, wear a £500 helmet. That's just rubbish. If they've been certified to the standards, then it's a safe helmet to wear and it will save your life. The main thing is to get a helmet that fits you well and works really well with your head shape. You can go to a motorbike shop and get a helmet sized up and get something that's going to work really well for you. If a helmet doesn't fit you properly, it can be the most expensive helmet in the world, it's not going to do a good job of protecting you. You also never want to buy a helmet secondhand, so if you're on a tight budget, look for one of these cheaper helmets that will do the job. Don't go on eBay and buy something secondhand. Even this, I would rather someone spend £100 on the HJC than spend £100 buying this secondhand. You always want to buy a helmet brand new. So those are some of the differences between a cheap and a mid-range helmet. Let me know your experiences down in the comments, and in the meantime, safe riding, and I'll see you guys in the next one.